Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Dr. Jessie Hehmeyer. She is a founder of Well Empowered, where she practices data driven, heart centered functional medicine. Welcome to the show, Dr. Jessie.
Thank you so much, AJ. It's a pleasure to be here with you and your community.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show, Dr. Jessie. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll learn about how we can master our metabolism, all that from you. So we'll come to that. But first, a little bit about you, about your journey, so that people know who they are listening to.
Yeah, well, so as you shared, AJ, I practice data-driven, heart-centered functional medicine. And ultimately, how I arrived at the work that I do is by really getting a firsthand experience myself of what health is in our life, right? To me, health is the foundation that makes everything possible. And not just health as in like the absence of disease, but what we each uniquely define as our vision of vitality for ourselves. And so, in my own journey, when I came to see what it's like, what I'm able to contribute, how I'm able to experience fully the joys and wonders of this world when I feel my best and look my best, it really gives me access to being my best. It ultimately led me back to school to get a couple more graduate degrees so that I could bring this work to others, right? Every body is different. And so being able to really understand the science behind how bodies work has allowed me to be able to guide people in understanding the root cause of their symptoms or weight struggles or, fundamentally what they see as their barriers to vitality, and guiding them in their own journey in a very targeted way. Also have what they need in order to sustain them over time. And it's such a joy and a privilege to do this work. I'm so grateful to be able to partner with people in their health journey.
Absolutely, absolutely, Dr. Jessie. Now, when you talk of functional medicine, people seem to have heard about it, but not everyone understands it the way maybe perhaps you would want people to understand it. For a simple person, if they hear this term functional medicine, should they feel confused or should they think it's very simple? How would you like to put it for them?
Yes, well, I'll do my best to make it simple for people, AJ. And really, a few different things differentiate functional medicine from a more traditional approach. And before I speak to that, which I will, I just want to say there's nothing there for me. There's no like good or bad. It's not me against them or us against them, right? It's really identifying what is the right tool for the moment at hand. And what functional medicine does from an approach is a few things. First of all, it seeks to identify and address the root cause of symptoms, health conditions, health challenges, right? So for example, for someone who is struggling with weight, what is at the source of that struggle, physiologically speaking? And we'd look at that in a lot of different ways as well. But with regards to digestion, we'd look at what is the root cause of someone's digestive distress, whether it's bloating or diarrhea or constipation. We're looking to understand what's at the source of it rather than just taking a Band-Aid approach. Of course, we want to alleviate those symptoms, but what we really want to do is identify and address the root cause, whatever the symptom or conundrum may be, and facilitate healing, right? And so that's really, core to functional medicine. The other thing that I would say is unique to functional medicine is that we really take a whole body approach, right? Again, traditional medicine with its kind of silos of specialties, you could see a liver specialist or an endocrinologist or a cardiovascular specialist, and all of those are very, very important and do wonderful things. But in the functional medicine approach, we are looking at all of the body, all of the systems together, and recognizing the interplay and seeing how two things that may seemingly be unrelated oftentimes are, right? So, for a good example of that might be the brain gut connection, right? A lot of people are starting to uncover the microbiome and the various roles it plays in health. And so, an example of the brain gut connection would be the interplay between our microbiome and our mood, as well as our mood and our digestion, right? So in a functional medicine approach, we're looking to take a holistic approach. I would also say that most of us who are functional medicine practitioners typically are using natural remedies. So for me, I exclusively use natural remedies. Again, I am not against medications. I work with a lot of people who at least part of their journey towards vitality does include some kind of medication. And that's great. This all plays well together. To me, the North Star is people thriving. And so we want to bring all of the best of each toolkit into your toolkit so that you can feel your best, look your best, and be your best.
Right, right, Dr. Jesse. Now, in terms of when we understand functional medicine, it sounds to be natural medicine, and that sounds very good. So, functional medicine, does it come before one goes to the modern medicine to a doctor, or does it come after the modern medicine has not worked the way it should? And then, so you want someone who can give it a bit of more time, more different approach. How does it work?
Yeah, great question, AJ. I would say both approaches, right? So there may be someone who comes to see me who says, I don't like the way this is going, right? The trajectory of my health is not, it's not pretty. I don't, if I fast forward 5 years, I don't like what I see if I stay on this road, right? And they might come to see me and we might do a thorough assessment to assess, where are they in this moment with numbers, right? Labs don't lie. So I do a lot of lab work. And in that situation, oftentimes we're able, like, in other words, it's responsible. We're not putting this person in harm's way to take a natural approach, to use nutrition in a targeted way, to use supplements in a targeted way, to use lifestyle in a targeted way, collectively, so that we shift that in the future that's on the horizon. Now, there are other people who come to see me that maybe they have seen all the specialists and they still have symptoms without any answers, right? That's common around digestive distress. That's common with hormonal fluctuations. That's common with things around the skin, whether it's acne or psoriasis. So oftentimes people will have sought a traditional approach and haven't found the answers. And so they come to see me. And then there's this third category of, for example, someone with an autoimmune condition like ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease. Maybe they are on medication and their disease is not well controlled, even though they're on the medication. So they come to see me and we bring that into the equation and ultimately are able to shift, their symptoms and how they're feeling.
Right, right. And you talk about this data driven functional medicine. A lot of times people complain that, you know, the modern medicine that we have, it is more related to tests. In a way, it's also data driven. So help us understand your data driven medicine as well as the modern approach, which is sometimes, so many tests, so much of data there, which doesn't seem to be working the way it should be. Help us understand then data driven medicine, functional medicine in that backdrop.
Yeah, so we're looking for different data. I mean, we're looking at oftentimes the same data, we're looking at it differently. And the difference is that for me, I'm looking for the source of the symptoms or disease state or, conundrums, the thing they're struggling to solve, right? So when I look at that data, I look at it through that lens. Where's our source to facilitate healing? Versus a more traditional approach is a little more black and white, right? It's like they're not looking to address the root cause. They're looking, is there a disease or not? And if there's a disease, is it a medication or surgery that's the right fit for this moment, right? So that's kind of how traditional medicine more often than not goes. Disease state, yes or no? If yes, is it medication or surgery that will, kind of we'll be using for this remedy, so to speak? So I think that's among, that's kind of one of the big differences in our approaches.
Right, right, Dr. Jesse. Now, let's understand metabolism. Almost everyone has heard about this term called metabolism, and people normally understand it as if it's about the way food can be your ability to digest the food that you have got, and the speed at which you can digest whatever you eat. Is there something more about metabolism that we need to know from a common person's perspective? Then we'll come to know about the overlooked causes that can slow down metabolism.
Yeah, well, AJ, what I would say is beyond digesting food, it's really about when we talk about metabolism, we're commonly talking about your how much energy your body uses on a day-to-day basis, right? And
Right,
by energy, if we're going to get real, technical, we're talking about your body's production of energy, also known as ATP. So it's really asking how much energy or ATP does your body use on a daily basis? And most commonly, we look at this lens as it pertains to weight, right? Oftentimes you'll hear someone saying, oh, they have a fast metabolism. And that perception is typically, oh, they can eat a lot of things and their weight doesn't change,
right,
right? Or someone might think they can eat more than I can eat and their weight doesn't change, right? Or when someone says they have a slow metabolism, they have the feeling that it's really difficult for them to lose weight. And you started to hint at the commonly overlooked root causes of a slow metabolism. And yeah,
right.
we can definitely dive into that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, five overlooked causes of slow metabolism that you talk about help us understand that.
Yeah. So the first one we're going to talk about is inflammation. So elevated inflammation is a commonly overlooked cause of a slow metabolism. And, inflammation is a knowable phenomenon. We don't need to guess if someone's inflammation is elevated. And to step back a little bit and just talk a little bit about, okay, what the heck is inflammation anyway? Inflammation is our body's response to toxins, to infections, to injuries, and it's designed to facilitate healing. But it's only designed to facilitate healing if it's occurring on a short-term basis. But for many people, it can be an inflammation out of control situation, and they have what we call chronic inflammation. And when inflammation is chronically elevated, it puts the body into fat storage mode. It slows down the metabolism. So elevated inflammation is something I routinely I test for elevated inflammation routinely when I work with people. So this is definitely one of the things that we're looking at in the when someone's dealing with weight loss challenges. The second thing that we're going to talk about is what I call compromised insulin sensitivity or suboptimal insulin sensitivity. Insulin is a hormone our body produces, and it does many different things. But on the foundational level, what insulin does is it acts like an escort to glucose. It acts like an escort to the carbohydrates we break down and absorb. And what it does is that insulin grabs those carbohydrates, also known as glucose, once it's absorbed, by its metaphorical sticky hands, and walks it over to a cell wall, knocks on the cell wall, and then the cell opens up and absorbs that glucose. But for a variety of reasons over time, the cell's ability to hear the message of the insulin's knocking, the cell's not hearing the message, that can get compromised, right? So the insulin's knocking, the cell's not hearing the message, so the body produces more insulin. And then you've got a bunch of insulin molecules knocking on the cell door. Well, the problem with that is in addition to being an escort, insulin is one of the primary ways we control our metabolism. So when we've got insulin, what insulin does is it communicates, you've been fed, store that fuel. So when insulin is elevated, it's going to push us into slow metabolism, fat storage mode also. Now, the other thing that I'd say about that is lab normal insulin is different than optimal. So many lab tests, and I'm going to use numbers in the US. I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure what metric you'd be using in India, but in the US, it will go up as high as 23 as lab normal for insulin. But really, where I like to see it is at 7 or less. 7 or less is really telling us that your body is receiving that message that insulin is conveying. And when it starts to creep up higher, that's when I'm going to be thinking about it as one of the causes of a slower metabolism. Number 3 is what I like to say, detox pathways gunked up. Detox pathways gunked up. I know that's super technical, but detoxification includes multiple steps for us to eliminate toxins. We need to activate the pathways, actually get them going. We need to neutralize the toxins. And then number 3, we need to get rid of or eliminate the toxins. And these steps are very complicated, and they can get, kind of gunked up for a variety of reasons, including more toxins working through them than ideal, or also they might not have enough of the nutrients they need to work well. So many different reasons they might not be working well. But when that happens, not only are we producing more inflammation, but also are exposed to more inflammation, we are also, it's going to throw off our sex hormones, in particular estrogen, because estrogen goes through our detox pathways. And when our estrogen levels are out of whack, so too is our metabolism. Number 4 is nutrient deficiencies and insufficiencies. And nutrient deficiencies and insufficiencies play an important role in our metabolism for a wide variety of reasons. Some of them are anti-inflammatory. Some of them help our hormones work better. They help the body get the message of hormones better. Some of them play a role in producing energy itself. So things like vitamin B12, vitamin D, omega-3 fatty acids, these are just selenium, iodine, these are just a few of the nutrients when they're not in their optimal levels that can play a role in a slow metabolism. And then our 5th and final often overlooked cause of a slow metabolism is stress. And stress in all of its many forms. So oftentimes when we think of stress, when we speak about stress, we're talking about psychological or emotional stress. And certainly that is a very real type of stress. But what I'm speaking to is something well beyond only psychological stress. It actually includes physiological stress. So stress that is done to our body on the chemical level that we might not experience as stress, but is still a real stressor to our body. These are things like blood sugar when it's out going up and down. This could be something like insufficient sleep. This could be even elevated inflammation is a type of stress of sorts. So these are just different types of physiological stressors that you may not notice in the way you feel, but are having an impact on your body. And the common thing that all of these stressors do, or the impact they all have, is they cause your body to produce cortisol. And cortisol is our primary stress hormone. Among other things, one of the things that cortisol does is it tells our body to store fuel. It tells our body to store fat. So there we have the 5th and final, commonly overlooked cause of a slow metabolism.
Right, Dr. Jessie. So how do I know where to should I intervene? Because these things keep happening within our body, and at one point in time, when we come to know about that, we already start with certain degrees of medicines, and then we just don't know. People generally have a belief that once you start with those medicines, it's very difficult to leave them, and that there are some things that will continue for a long time. How then one should look at their health beforehand? Is there a way where one can assess about their metabolism and take preventive measures, or is it that it is bound to happen, one can only slow down?
Great question, AJ. Absolutely. There are preventative measures one can take, but the first step is getting the numbers, right? Testing inflammation, testing different nutrients, testing cortisol levels, testing, there are different ways you can look at detox pathways. So all of these things can be assessed. And when I work with people, we do the tests. And then we actually make shifts, right? We make the shifts that your body is telling us are required to restore healthy metabolic function. And then we also do the test again, right? So we don't just do tests and cross our fingers. If someone's metabolism is slow, then they would expect that, okay, maybe the scale's going to start to move. They'll start to lose weight as we start to do our work. But also we want to go back. We want to circle back and test those labs again. Let's say inflammation was elevated, HSCRP is elevated, one of the inflammatory markers we look at. Then we want to go back and look to make sure it has in fact come down as we expect it would. And that also changes the plan for moving ahead, right? Because at a certain point, when you're making shifts and you're, in this example, breaking the vicious cycle of inflammation, what was necessary at one point won't be necessary in the future, provided that you keep up with the other, maybe it's nutritional shifts or sleep or whatever it is we find is going to be most restorative for your body's health.
Right, Dr. Jesse. Now, a lot of people think, they may have a good metabolism, but can it also happen that there are certain foods that you may be taking perhaps a bit more regularly and you are not aware about the metabolic effect of those food in your body? Can it happen like that, that some foods may be not so good, and for others it may be part of their metabolic process, it will be perfectly digested by them? Help us understand this part. Should people look at this part even in their general day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I mean, definitely there can be foods that are, adversely affecting health, and really it is an individualized approach, right? Sometimes people have food sensitivities. These food sensitivities are delayed reactions, and they're actually an immune response. So the immune system can react to the proteins in foods. And sometimes people think, well, I would know it because my digestion would be different, it would be off. But that's not always true. These food sensitivities can show up in a lot of different ways for different people. So that would be an example of when someone might be reacting to food, but not really knowing they're reacting to food. Also, lab tests will show us, just standard lab tests, right? There's the example of something like elevated fasting glucose or elevated insulin. When we see something like that, that helps us understand, at least from a category wise, where a category perspective of food, where shifts would make a difference, right? Where we can reverse that trend, taking someone from pre-diabetic to not at all at really healthy fasting glucose, one that's representative of health and a vote for longevity.
Right. So in terms of overall health, when people look at overall health, when when is the right time that they should come to you? Should they immediately after birth, 20 years after birth, or when the problem comes into their life? When should functional medicine come to them, or should they go to functional medicine before?
Yeah, great question. Well, it's always best, in my opinion, to work proactively. And so that means if you can work with someone like myself, someone who practices data-driven functional medicine, data-driven natural medicine, before you have a problem, then that's wonderful, right? But then oftentimes that's just not how it is, right? So oftentimes people they're busy doing other things. They're busy excelling in their jobs. They're busy taking care of their family, growing their family, all these different things. And they wake up one day and go, holy cow, right? These digestive symptoms have been with me for 5 years. They're still there. Or, oh my goodness, my doctor just told me that I'm going to need to go on statins, cholesterol medication. I don't want to. There must be a natural way, right? So I work with people in both camps, and always it's great if we can work preventatively, but certainly there are plenty of people, most of the people who I work with, if I'm being honest, AJ, come to me because they have a problem they're committed to resolving, right? And sometimes it's not like they were trying to delay coming to see me. They just didn't know this type of work was out there. And after struggling with their health for some time and their symptoms for some time, they started searching online, and maybe they find our conversation, or they just come across the Institute of Functional Medicine and they find me that way. But most of the people who I work with are coming to my virtual front door with some kind of symptom or health concern that is showing up that they're looking to resolve.
Wonderful, wonderful, Dr. Jesse. There is much to learn from you, understand from you about all these things, and I'm sure a lot of people would want to know more about functional medicine, about you, about the way you approach this particular field. And so, what is the best way for them to connect with you?
Yes, you can connect with me at wellempowered.com, my website, and a few different things. One is, if you'd like to explore working together, please schedule a complimentary consultation and let me know AJ sent you, because you will be gifted with 10% off any work we do together. And also, you can find me on Instagram at wellempowered. On my website, just to add, you can also sign up for our newsletters, where you will get a weekly dare. Once a week, we send you a weekly dare, including a micro habit to support you in taking one baby step to support your health and vitality.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.